Well, hello everyone. This is Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child. And today we're going to be talking about 7 tips to improve writing for kids. If for some reason you can't hear very well, I would encourage you to turn up your speakers or use earbuds, get rid of all those extra sounds. Or if you have a lot of browsers or tabs open, sometimes if you close those, you will get a better sound and you won't get bumped off the webinar or the workshop. So anyway, you are here and we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to cover a lot of information. You can see all of these ideas that we're going to talk about. One of the biggest things I want to do today, hopefully, is give you these 7 tips. It's a writing process, so we're going to go through the different stages of the writing process. And I want to help you, whether you have a child that has a reluctant writer who needs lots of nurturing, or maybe you have an eager, motivated student who just needs tools to help spread their wings. All the principles that I share today will still apply. I will be right up front. I like a workshop, a curriculum called Bright Shop. I will be using some examples from them as well. And I have a special deal for you at the end, but just so you know straight up that I am going to share some of those examples just because I feel like it gives you a well-rounded, easy way, easy process to really teach your kids the writing process and get them to be better writers. I also want to encourage you to be inspiring and successful in your teaching writing. You know, a lot of homeschool moms struggle with the same issue as you have or I have. And we've got kids that can't write, and they are desperate to figure out how to do it. And so they're looking for something that will help them. I was in the same boat. I had my 3 kids when we were homeschooling for 10 years. Ashley's on the right. She was the one that wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, but there really wasn't a point or solution. Ginger is a pretty good writer. She wrote pretty well and sort of had a feel for it, just sort of a little more natural, but that's not most kids. And then Hunter was your typical boy. He wanted to be outside shooting baskets rather than picking up a pen and paper and writing. So what could I do to help all of them? I did go searching, and I found tools that will work for all different types of kids. And those are the tools that I want to share with you today, because I truly believe that writing can be taught. You're not necessarily born with it, but it can be taught. Even a non-writer with some simple tools can learn to express themselves with the written word. So let's talk about how can we encourage our kids in the writing process. What does it mean to inspire our kids, to motivate our kids? That was something that I tend to always get on my comments, is how do I motivate my kids? Hopefully I'll show you some tips and strategies, things that might encourage them in the writing assignments. So I would say one thing, we want to fill our kids with the ability to do something creative and just to be successful in what they do. We want to create a positive feeling about writing. My kids, actually, the first year I homeschooled, I signed Ashley and Gentry up for a writing workshop in Houston, and a little over an hour away. And we were coming back. They went kicking and screaming. And it was a 4-day workshop. But what we did do on the way home, after 4 days, it's Friday night, rush hour traffic, took us twice as long to get home. They wrote the entire way. And the biggest accomplishment that we did in that workshop is we changed their attitude about writing. We created a positive feeling, one that we could move forward with. We could motivate. They were more motivated because they actually had the tools to write and they had some confidence to write. Also, I think one way we encourage is just to ignite or spark an interest. Find things your kids are interested in and then develop writing assignments around those interests. I want to inspire you today so you can, in turn, go with your kids and inspire your kids to write as well. And you may be going, yeah, but it's still really hard to teach writing. What are some of the reasons? Well, I think parents feel insecure, inadequate, or unequipped. You may feel all 3 of those or just one of these, but a lot of times we know the importance of passing on the skill of writing, but we struggle. And we think to ourselves, well, I don't write. I'm just a math and science person. Someone else can do that. I don't know how to grade a paper. Well, we've got some ways that you can grade a paper without judgment. I can't teach writing because I never learned myself. Now, that's sort of how I felt at the time. Even though I was a fifth grade school teacher and taught writing for 3 years, I still went back to a lot of those things from high school and college, that attitude that was, I could not write. Or maybe I'm a writer, but I don't have any idea how to teach or inspire my own kids. We're going to deal with all of those attitudes today. Or maybe you have students who are paralyzed by writer's block. And really, writer's block is just a symptom of perfectionism. They get a block in their head because they want everything to be perfect the first time they write. Most students want to write their paper once and be done with it, and that's just not realistic. So we want to teach them the writing process, and that first draft is in the very middle. There are still many more steps after that. They see editing as discipline and correction, and we need to change that attitude. Hopefully today we can change that attitude in this workshop. They want us, the students, to accept it as finished product and give high marks, or if you make any suggestion, they're totally afraid, or the floodgates of protest open up. Why can't I leave it that way? You're always so critical. You never like anything I write. You may be dealing with some of those attitudes. Well, I can tell you that an insecure parent plus a struggling child equals no writing in your home. And you may include it in your lesson plans, but then you end up running out of time. It's the last thing that you do because you are paralyzed. Your kids are paralyzed. You're insecure. So we need to deal with some of our bad attitudes and our failed attempts, because you may spend hours planning lessons, but everyone's got such a bad attitude that we all become frustrated. Or maybe you wing it with no curriculum, and then there's usually no writing. Or you have all kinds of whining and fussing, which is what I had for a while. I can't think of anything. How long does it have to be? My hand hurts. I don't want to write about that. This is too hard. Can I just be done now? Or maybe your failed attempts are because you don't know how to give objective input. Either you don't give any feedback, so there's no improvement, or you make so many suggestions that your kids feel picked on, rejected. It's like blood spilled over on their paper with all the red marks. What are the results of bad attitudes and failed attempts? Mostly, you just give up on writing. Guilt quickly follows, and then you feel like a failure. So let's turn all of this around, and let's start with step one. Step one is you need to believe. Believe that you can inspire successful writers. And so we want to move forward, and how can we inspire our kids and give them the confidence that they need? Let's unlock the mysteries of teaching writing. And in order to do that, we need to know what are the stumbling blocks that we are running into. Maybe put some words to that. So first, our kids lack confidence because they really don't have good guidelines. They are unclear on what the directions are, what the expectations are. Or maybe they just have poor writing skills because they don't have any tools to make their writing fresh and interesting. And many of them, as you've mentioned in your blog comments or in emails, your kids just lack any motivation. Maybe that's because the topic is uninviting, uninteresting, or just totally irrelevant. But we also have some kids that are perfectionists. And if they can't do it perfectly, they're just not going to do it at all. And that's where you get more whining. This was me. I had a limited vocabulary, and I wish someone had the tools that I'm going to share with you today. I wish someone had the ways to improve my vocabulary instead of just giving me a vocabulary test. So I'm going to give you some, because we all have word-deprived kids. I was a word-deprived kid. I had a hard time coming up with words and coming up with sentences and making things flow. And some of our stumbling blocks are just our kids are lazy and they just procrastinate over and over. We're going to talk about schedules and routines. And then they worry because you're going to criticize, and they want to do well. They want to please their parents. And then finally, some of our kids truly have learning challenges. They really do have some learning disabilities, and we need to be able to overcome it. That is one reason I like Write Shop. There are always tips for the child who's having learning disabilities and for the advancing writer as well. So how do we overcome the stumbling blocks that we have? I think one of the first things is we can change our approach and change our attitude. You're the barometer in your home. If you lack confidence, your kids are going to lack confidence. If you're frustrated, they'll be frustrated too. And so we need to change our attitude, and then we may need to change our approach. One of the things I think that's super important is that we need to explore different ways that we can do things. It isn't always the way that we grew up. And one of the reasons I include approaches to Christian homeschooling is because I believe it can change your approach. Because one of the things we do is we just go and do what everyone else is doing. We take a people survey instead of a God survey. We need to go to God and see what He wants us to do. Approaches to Christian homeschooling has a whole section on writing goals based on you, your personality, based on your family, and based on your child. And then from there, looking at the different approaches to homeschooling and matching them up to where you pick the best approach, the best way to homeschool for your goals and for your family. It is the same with writing. Look at their stumbling blocks and find an approach to writing that would be best for them. Be proactive. I think one of the things is looking at your goals and setting goals, but also working on character issues. Because if a child is rebellious and stubborn, they're not going to get their writing done. And so we need to be sure and we do that. howtohomeschoolmychild.com/approaches is what that should be if you want to read more about approaches to Christian homeschooling. But as you are thinking through, once you have your goals, once you learn how to make goals and try to match them to the best approach, you need to start looking for the writing program that offers the best support for you, offers parental support that is able to serve you. That's one reason I'm glad you're on this workshop, because I want to give you support. Personalized support through a phone call or an email, workshops, blog posts, reviews, all sorts of support. Because I want to help you. You must know your role. We'll be talking about the role of the parent, but you need to know that, and you need to get support in what that role is as well. The next thing is you need to teach your kids. You can't just give them assignment. When you give them a multiplication assignment, 32 times 68, you don't just hand them the paper and expect them to do it. You go through the entire writing process. And that's what you need to do with writing. You don't assign an assignment until you've modeled it and you taught it. So we do need to teach it. Writing is not learned by osmosis. Very few students learn to write intuitively. So you parent, you mom, you dad must be involved in the process to see improvement. So at every age your child needs your instruction, your guidance, your feedback, and your time. Time is hard sometimes because we feel like we're just running out of time, although we all have the same amount of time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But your kids need you to be involved with them in writing. So they need your instruction, your guidance, your feedback, and your time. So when you're choosing the right program, find one that encourages you and shows you how to instruct your kids, how to guide and model, how to give objective feedback, and how to use your time wisely. You want to find a teacher's guide that teaches you how to teach writing, how it can encourage your kids, inspire your kids, ignite that spark within them, gives you lesson plans and suggestions for discussion. But then you also want to help your student write. You want something that has teaches your kids the writing process, and they start to see the progress that they are making, even at the primary, even at the younger level. When students begin to see the bigger picture, they have a value. They begin to value planning, writing, and revising. So what does that mean? Writing is a process. Kids need to learn, and this is something you need to teach your kids, that writing is a process. It is not a one and done. It is not once done and finished. It is a process. The finished draft is just one part of the entire process. So what are some ways that you can do this? I think one of the best things is you can use a schedule. You can see this is a schedule from Write Shop Primary, where they don't even write every day. And they do the same activities. They have guided writing, they have pre-writing activities, they learn skills, they write, they edit, they revise, they come up with a final project and publish it. So it's basically breaking down the writing process into manageable chunks, doable bite-sized chunks for you and for your kid. Now, this is just a typical schedule that most people follow for one writing assignment. You'll see it will take them 3 weeks to do that. You could also do it over a 2-week period as well. But the one thing I really like is this allows your drafts to rest between writing sessions. Andrew Kern is a friend of mine, and he made the comment that when he writes, he always puts it aside, sleeps on it, and then the next day looks at it again. And that's something I've always done. I try to write and then put it away and then come back to it with fresh eyes. This schedule allows your kids to do that. That's an important concept for your kids to learn. So, take your assignments and spread them out. And sometimes you may, with younger kids, even skip a day. I would also, on those off days, probably encourage you to do copy work or dictation as well. Now, regardless of the grade or the writing skill, you need to use a schedule and spread out those assignments. The next is provide some sort of routine. This is actually a high school schedule. And you can see every day they're starting with a student writing focus, and then they do a skill builder on days 1, 2, and 3. Then they have copy and dictation on some days. Every day is already laid out. It's very similar each week. So that provides some routine. And when you do that, you develop some good habits. Your kids may not understand the writing process right now, but if you do the writing process over and over, they will begin good habits in writing. A routine or a schedule will also help everyone stay on track. And lastly, it's going to ward off any kind of procrastination for you or them. Sometimes I was just as bad a procrastinator as they were. So let's just jump right in and get ready to write. We're going to talk a little bit about some pre-writing type things. And most Write Shop lessons begin with pre-writing activities. Do not ever skip pre-writing. These are just as important. And actually, this is the place you can start to motivate your kids. So listen carefully if you kids have a motivation problem. The first idea is play. What does play do? First of all, it is valuable at all ages, even high schoolers. And if you have an unmotivated child, a disinterested child, start with play. When you play, you begin to do some pre-writing activities. It begins to prepare your kids to write, does some warm-ups, gets the creative juices flowing, and then also gives you an opportunity to introduce new skills. I personally like games because they're competitive, and my kids were all competitive, and so they would learn things just because they wanted to win the game. Let's take a look and see what some are. At the primary level, you could do some pre-writing activities on rhyming words and use the rhyming flower. You could use the Go Fish with the magnet and the clip on the fish, and maybe there's adjectives on there, or maybe there are topics that they're going to write about, or the name of the person that they're going to include. And then we have pictures and words for topics. Or if you just have a word block, you can pull this out and maybe it'll help you move forward. Pre-writing junior. We have the story robot, which has the main idea in the middle and details 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the arms and legs. Have they written a paragraph? No, they're just jotting notes down. That's what pre-writing is. Wouldn't they rather look at something like that than a piece of paper, notebook paper? Pre-writing junior, you got Where in the World spinner, and you decide what the setting is by spinning that little globe. I really like the next one. It's specifically for narrowing a topic. A lot of times our kids choose a topic that is so humongous that they can't really write about it. So we were trying, this is called the Great Shrinking Machine. And we're looking at a topic and they decide they want to write about pets. And you know that's too wide a topic. So we are going to talk about, well, what pet are we going to write about? And you'll have a discussion about it. And then you're going to go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shrink it. And then you shrink it to rabbits. You go, that's a great idea. I think rabbits are a good topic. Which rabbit are we going to write about? And then you brainstorm some ideas and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shrink it. And they choose one of our ideas. This is a way that they can narrow the topic without even understanding what narrow the topic is. All they know is we got to shrink it to something else because this is too big. And you can go all the way down to feeding Boo a carrot. So another thing is just using some creative paper so that it looks fun, something they might even color. This is describing a person, and you can write characteristics on the t-shirt and the shorts as well. Now, with older kids, we really can play some games. How would your kids like to walk into their writing assignment and see Mad Libs sitting on the desk? Would that motivate them? Maybe so. Playing games can help motivate your kids in the area of writing. They are learning grammar without even knowing they're learning grammar. And so that's one thing I like about Mad Libs. We also have Scrabble, Balderdash, Categories, Apples to Apples. These are all word games and thinking games. My family loved Apples to Apples, and they didn't even know that they were learning while they were playing it as well. So these are some fun pre-writing or play activities at the older kids level. Another thing is just our sentence building game. This is always popular when I'm giving workshops at conventions. So let's start with this sentence that your child wrote. An animal moved across the ground. You're like, oh, that's nice. Let's brainstorm what kind of animal. And you spend some time, brainstorming kangaroo, giraffe, lizard, panther, frog, and then let your child choose which animal. And they say, a lizard moved across the ground. Wow, that's cool. And then we brainstorm ground and we come up with a lizard moved across the rock. Wow, that's really cool that they're on a rock too. Now, I am doing this very fast, just like I've done some of the others. All the ones that I'm doing are very fast so that I give you lots of information. But you would slow this down with your students and you would take a lot of time brainstorming and letting someone write down the different ideas and choosing. But let's keep going. A lizard moved across the rock. Okay, how did they move? Well, a lizard darted across the rock. Wow, that is fast. So how can we describe the lizard? An alligator lizard darted across the rock. Really? Well, how can we describe the rock? Oh, that's really easy. An alligator lizard darted across the sun-baked rock. You can see this was just an activity. It's actually a writing activity. And it gets them to be more creative. It gets them to use adjectives and stronger vocabulary, but they don't know it because you're asking a question each time. And we brainstorm and we can pull out the thesaurus if we need to. If you do it as a group with all your kids, one kid may have lots of words and another one may be like me and be word deficient. So this is just a fun way to build sentences. And then put it away, come back the next day. Say, I want you to listen to this sentence and see what you imagine. And close their eyes. An animal moved across the ground. What did you think? And see what they say. And then read the last one and see what they say. An alligator lizard darted across the sun-baked rock. So starting to see the differences in ways that you're giving them the tools to improve. Don't just say, could you be more creative? Would you add some more detail? They don't have a clue what you're talking about. Give them tools, give like these sentence building games. Next is provide a pattern. This is an opportunity for you to model for your kids what they should be doing. It's a guided writing activities. You're providing a model. You are walking the students through the writing process that they're about to go through. This is an overview. You also, with older kids, you really want to familiarize them with the lesson's expectations. One of the reasons kids get frustrated is they don't really know what you expect of them. And I've got some checklists and some ideas I'll show you later. But you need to spend time at the beginning. This is part of the writing process and teaching well. Familiarize them with the lesson's expectation. And then also, establish any kind of boundaries. Like one boundary for us was once we brainstormed words for go. And once we did that, they could not use the word go in a sentence. So that was a boundary. And every time they wanted to use the word go, they had to go to their go page and they'd find another word as well. All of this provides patterns over and over, and especially with the younger kids. A lot of times you might end up being their scribe and they are dictating. This allows you to work together, especially at the younger kids. And as they get older, you can work together on other areas like editing. But the younger kids need help writing. One thing Hunter and I did when we were writing, he was writing an ABC Jungle Book. And as he wrote that book, he would tell me, he had all sorts of library books and he would research. He was like 7 or 8 years old. He wrote this Jungle Book and he would find what he wanted to say, and then he would tell me out loud, and I would write it down. Then he could edit it after that. So I was his scribe. Another way you might do it is share the pencil. You write a word, he writes a word. You write a word, the other person writes a word, back and forth. So that's a bit of it. You do the guided writing with them. They're just talking. Ask questions to guide discussion. This is so important, and we too often forget how important it is. I believe questions are important in all areas of teaching, and I believe it's the best way to get your kids to think for themselves. I have a whole workshop, Teach Your Children How to Think with Mentoring, and there's a whole section there on asking good questions, helping them think, helping them make decisions about what they should and shouldn't include in their writing. And so asking questions is vital. Let's be honest, writing is thinking on paper. Writing is thinking on paper. So when you write, you're just taking what's in your head and putting it on paper. Whatever you're thinking is what is going on there. Kids can play without, this is too often we put too much burden on our kids of writing. They have all this pressure to get this final copy instead of enjoying the process. And that's really important. And so we need to be sure that you don't pressure your kids, and maybe even don't pressure them to actually write it down, especially at those younger kids' age. You need to give them the opportunity to learn what's going on in their head and just be able to verbalize it out loud, then eventually write it down for themselves. So, what are some of the benefits of providing a pattern, of using guided writing activities? Believe it or not, it gives your child a sense of security through routine. Too often we think if we do the same thing over and over, it will squelch their creativity. And in fact, it's just the opposite. It gives them boundaries, it gives them an understanding of what they should do. Mom is modeling the lesson guidelines and teaching new concepts. You also have the opportunity to teach and reinforce important writing skills such as left to right, letter formation, correct spacing, indentation, punctuation, word patterns, reading and writing common sight words, a lot of patterns that they need to pick up on. And so that's one reason we do guided writing type activities. One of the first ones we'll show at the younger kids' age are just sentence starters, predictable sentence starters. So we have the beginning of a sentence, and then you're going to have your child fill in the rest. So you say, hello, and they say Tanner, and then you say today is, and then they put in the blank, Tuesday. Uh-oh. It is, and they put whatever. They said cold outside, but you never know what they might say. You are writing down their answers. We are going to bake brownies after lunch. I think I will take some to our neighbor. These are all sentence starters. I got them all from Write Shop Level A. There are ones in other books as well, but this just gives you an idea. It seems so simple, and you're like, wow, I'm going to get tired of this, doing it over and over. But think about your child. They think literally. How many of you have a kid who wants to read the same book over and over and over again? If that's the case, this type of activity actually gives them a lot of security. And I would encourage you to find different types of predictable sentence starters that you could actually use with your kids. At the junior age, we're going to use a little bit more questions. So they're writing a story about Texas Tatum, who's around this tall cactus. And mom says, as Texas Tatum searched behind a tall cactus, she saw what? And child says, she saw a snake. Oh, where was the snake? It was in the sand. Really? It was in the sand. So as she searched behind a tall cactus, she saw a snake in the sand. Is that right? Yes. Do you see how they asked questions to get details? They didn't say, do you want to add more details? We're asking specific questions about whatever the story or report is. If you're going, can't you be more creative? You're not doing the right question. You need to ask specific questions to draw out answers and get them to begin to think about their story as well. Questions are the ultimate, I believe. So, what happened next? And then go on, and we figured out what happens next. And you continue to ask question after question after question to draw out more detail. One thing that's important, mutual participation. During these guided writing activities, students are dictating and you are writing maybe on the dry erase board or on the computer, on a piece of paper, wherever. Now, with older kids, they are going to practice paragraphs, but again, the play, and then I've already forgotten what this one is. It's practice, yeah. Provide a pattern. So the pattern we've talked about is explaining our expectations. That is the pattern. Here's what I need. I need 5 paragraphs. Each paragraph must be 5 to 7 sentences. Each one must be indented. The first one must be an introduction. The last one ought to be a conclusion. The 3 body paragraphs. Acquaint them what the assignment is and what your expectation is. And then teach writing skills along the way, whether that's how to do a dialogue, using prompts and questions, my favorite. Showing examples. One thing about Write Shop I love is they always have examples of whatever the assignment is. And that way a child can sort of gain some security knowing what direction they are headed. Participate with your student. This is, even at high school, they still need you involved at different points in time. Now let's just jump right on in after talking about play and talking about patterns. Let's talk about the 7 P's that I originally was going to share with you, which are plan, practice, proofread, perfect, propose, polish and publish, and praise. Lots of P's in this workshop. Let's just go ahead and get started because the first one is super important, and it is brainstorming. What does brainstorming do? It's going to stimulate your kids' thinking. It provides a springboard for writing ideas. It might even help them overcome their writer's block, which is often based in perfectionism. It gets their ideas flowing so they have something to say, prepares them for writing as they develop a plan. They don't have to go straight from their head to their pencil to write a paragraph. They're going to plan and organize it. They want to organize their thoughts. I'm going to show you some ways. It also will help promote stronger vocabulary. We want to develop writing vocabulary through the use of word lists and thesaurus. Remember, a limited vocabulary hinders good writing, and that's one reason I think I struggled so much in school is I had a limited vocabulary. So during the planning time, we want to promote vocabulary growth, expand word choices, and help avoid vague, weak vocabulary and overly repeated words. And that's another reason I like Write Shop. It really does all of those things. So let's talk about my favorite secret, word banks. That I already told you about one of them. I told my kids they couldn't use the word go anymore. And so we made a list like this one on the right-hand side with different words. And they kept a list of all the words that they could use that meant go. Another one is this. Here's one that's just words about season. They take a manila folder. At the top, they make 4 columns, spring, summer, fall, and winter. And then they spend some time brainstorming words that describe those 4 seasons. You can do that with your senses as well. There's lots of ways you can do it. But when it's time to talk about a setting that's icy cold, they could go to the winter page, the winter section, and see what words might be useful to them. Then we have Willie the Worm. And those are all different words that you can use to describe Willie the Worm. And fun way, you could put it up on your wall if you have space, or you could do it in their workbook as well. But find a place that you start to have word banks. We want to develop good word banks and activities. This is a high school one where you can use thematic lists. That's what I would actually encourage you to do. These are mostly adjectives. And I think it is. Here are some thesaurus activities. A good thesaurus is the synonym finder. You can find it at howtohomeschoolmychild.com/thesaurus. Or you can also play another game, howtohomeschoolmychild.com/thesaurus game. So both of those would be fun ways to motivate your kids to increase their vocabulary, develop a better, stronger vocabulary for their writing. Next in this section is in planning, choosing a topic. And I think it's important that we provide a wide variety of writing experiences, but we also are open to what our kids are interested in. If I'm teaching my kids how to write a story, which I used to think was worthless, because I thought, how many people are going to grow up and need to write a story? And then once I grew up, I realized, oh, they do need to write it. Sure, yeah, if you work as a journalist or novelist, you do. But if you're in business, you better know how to tell a story or write a story, because you use that in marketing, you use that in sales. There are lots of ways. If you work at a church, you're going to need to use that because you want to relate whatever it is to real life, and you will need to be able to share stories as well. There's a wide variety of uses for stories. I think God teaches knows that we learn best through stories, and we need to be able to write a good story. So that's one thing we need to do. But does it matter what the topic is? If your kids are interested in one topic over another, let them write about that. So we want a wide variety of writing experiences, flexibility, and topic choices. When Hunter was about 11 or 12, we were studying ancient Rome. We were going to writing assignment was about writing about a person. So I'm thinking Roman emperor. Let's learn more about Rome. I think that would be so cool. And he rolled his eyes like, "Oh my goodness, really, Mom?" So I started thinking, and we decided that he would write a paragraph on Derek Jeter, the baseball player. He had been reading about Derek Jeter, and I can guarantee you that he wrote a better paper about Derek Jeter than he would have about Augustus Caesar or whomever I would have chosen. So be flexible with the topics, especially at those younger ages. Does it really matter what the topic is? No, they're still going to learn the writing process. When you can, I would write across the curriculum. So Hunter was very interested in science. So when it came to astronomy, he did write a paper about astronomy. So find the things that your kids are interested in and try to write about them across the curriculum as well. Let's go through. I'm going really quickly through this, but here are some different genres when they're young, just some personal experiences, poems, some friendly letters, and journal writing. As they get older, they're going to write more formal letters, write some adventure, mystery biography, narrative, folk tales, and start to write some informative writings as far as reports. Junior high, you're going to come up with your regular focused writing, descriptive, informative, narrative, persuasive. Let's talk about that for a minute. If we are planning for a narrative, then we want to list the events in the order, and that would be part of our pre-writing activities. If we are going to write a descriptive paragraph, then we need to really focus and study the subject that we are writing about and look at it in all different ways. I'll show you a slide in just a second about that. If we're going to write informative or a how-to, we need to list the steps of the process. So each one of these has a different pre-writing activity. And then we also have some supplemental writing as well. Now, in senior high, there's a wide variety of essays, creative writing, short stories, business writing, but also they need to be able to write research papers. This will continue to expand their skills in writing and will force them to come up with a conclusion and prove their conclusion as well. So they're going to learn how to take notes, how to skim, how to organize their thoughts, start paying a little more attention to current events if that will help support your topic. And this, I would say, you might want to have a little more challenging topics. But even then, Gentry was in high school and she was working on a research paper. And so I'm like, well, what do you want to write about? We were studying modernity. So she wrote a paper on Jane Austen because she was interested in that. And I knew she would do a better job than if I had dictated to her what topic. They'll also learn about hooks, conclusions, copyright, that type of thing. Now, here are some brainstorming worksheets. We talked about the different types of writing. Now, how do we organize our ideas for those types of writing? With the story wheel, you've got who, what, where, when, why, and you just put all that in this place. You're not writing a paragraph, you're just filling in the blanks. Goldilocks and the Three Bears, same thing. You're just filling in the different events that happen. A trip to Saturn, you can write in any order because it's just ideas of what happened on your trip to Saturn. Then you go through and put your order when you're writing your paragraph. This teaches young children to plan their story before writing. Before writing, we plan before we write. Here's some more helps to sort ideas. The one in the middle is the story bucket idea with the title at the top, problem and solution, and then the beginning, middle, and end. Austin, baby Austin, he just described his baby Austin and how he could describe him on his t-shirt. And then the flower is the different activities for that particular day. Junior, the left one is writing an invitation. We've got our story robot again. And then the last one again is just another way to organize our story. We've got the problem at the beginning, solution at the end, main character at the top, setting, all of that. Now, with older kids, you might use some Free listing charts, mind maps, and diagrams. The bacon in the middle is actually a mind map, and I like this because you can add to it in any order. We don't have to go in a list. So bacon's in the middle, the five senses are around it. Maybe one of them says something like aroma, so we add that to smell. Maybe someone else says crispy, and they add that to texture. So it doesn't matter what order. Mind maps allow you to organize your information quickly, or actually not organize it, get it out of your head, then you go back and organize it. The Venn diagrams here are also a great way on compare and contrast type essays, which is exactly what this is between the three pieces of ancient architecture. The overlaps are the things that are similar on these particular pieces of architecture. Now, let's go. I should have put this earlier, but observing an object. These are all questions that you can use as if you're going to do a descriptive paragraph. And so you've got looking at the appearance, the texture, the smell, and then describing it with words. Lastly is sound. These are just questions. Again, I like questions. They have to look very carefully to name its different features. What is unique about that particular object? So just a good exercise to really pay attention of what's going on around or what is happening in a particular object. Now, if you're going to brainstorm for a narrative, this is a little bit older. You want to identify the point of view. So is it from the author's, is there a narrator? Is it from one of the characters' point of view? Decide on the tense. Is it future, past, present? And then we want to order our sequences. This particular workshop helps you describe the different characters, list the sequence, choose your tense, choose your point of view. Is it David, King Saul, a member of the army, member of the Philistine army, or Goliath? So you could write it from a lot of different points of view. Next point is practice. And this is where our kids think we've ended. They think you just brainstorm, organize, and write. And that's not true. Practice is actually a rough draft, and it's a sloppy copy. And it's called a sloppy copy because it is intended to be sloppy. It does not need to be neat. It should not be perfect. It should be imperfect, flawed, a rough draft. And the main thing is that it's legible. Now, if a student still can't think of something to say at this point, he may need to go back and brainstorm even more. So what is the purpose of this? We want our kids to start practicing with the ideas that they've just brainstormed and come up with a structure and a style. We want to help them focus on following directions. What is the assignment? And they follow the directions for that assignment. And then getting their ideas onto paper. Now, I would make sure you go over all the questions now before they start writing so that they know what your expectations are. And as your student is writing, hopefully he will be drawing on many ideas that he gathered during his brainstorming, from his brainstorming worksheets or his organization. When you're working with primary kids, I would encourage you to let your kids dictate to you, especially if they are reluctant writers, as they gain skill and confidence. That's what we want. We want to use each of these steps in the process to gain confidence so that then maybe you take turns holding the pencil, and then eventually you want your kids to write on their own. So this is a sloppy copy. It is just for practice. It is just getting your ideas down on paper. Now, the next part is proofreading, because no author ever turns in or publishes his first draft. So we had planning, and then we had practice, and now we have proofreading. And this is like self-editing. With younger kids, you're going to do this with mom. You may even skip parts of this till they get a little bit older. But the whole purpose is for your child to start reading their paper and editing it themselves, proofreading it themselves. But you can't just say, go proofread. We must teach them how to do it. So they begin to take more responsibility. They start to learn. This is a lifelong skill. It's just like being a good person and having good character. We grow into this, just like when you're writing, you're going to grow into your ability to write. And it is a lifelong skill. And we want them to quit, A liberal arts education liberates our kids from the teacher. That's what proofreading is doing. It's step by step, helping your kids take a little more responsibility each year so they are not completely dependent on their teacher. So they begin to be liberated from their teacher and make some changes themselves. They learn to look for their own errors. Um, and it's just a good lifelong principle in all areas of life. One thing you need to remember is you have 20 or 30 more years of writing or reading or speaking experience. So don't have the same expectations of your kids that you might of yourselves. So at the primary and junior age, you're going to work very closely with the parent. As they grow into teens, and I would say more in the senior high, they are going to work independently and they will do this whole proofreading by themselves. Then they will give it to mom or dad. And here is how you're going to do it. You want to use checklists and editing tools. Here are some samples. Self-editing checklists. And so this is going to teach them how they can proofread. I use proofreading marks to make corrections. If they did it, they put a check. I indented each new paragraph. Well, I don't know. Let me go see. Yeah, they all do. Okay, I check it. I wrote complete sentences. So I go back and I read them all. Oops, this one in a complete sentence. I got to change it. Okay, now they all are. So I can put a check mark there. The whole point of the checklist is that they can go through and check off that they have done everything that you've expected of them. You can't add something after you've given them the checklist. If there's something else you want them to learn, teach it in the next writing assignment. So you can look and see these. That's a very simple self-editing checklist, and then some very simple proofreading marks as well. Now, I will say that if you have a child just turns it in quickly and carelessly, you give it back to them. If they just went through and checked them all off, then you go back with them. You may have to start doing it at the beginning with them and then slowly let them do it. Or maybe you're going to check the top half and they're going to check the bottom half. If you have a really reluctant writer, that might be true. But after they've learned to use this checklist, they should be able to do this on their own. As they compare their sloppy copy to the checklist, they will continue to make corrections and improvements as well. Work very closely with the younger ones, and you might make very simple corrections with younger ones. Is this a complete sentence? Did I begin with a capital? Did I end with a period or a question mark? And then you can move forward, and then they begin to learn spelling errors or the story ingredients or what the problem in the story is, and did I actually solve that problem? Now, at junior high and senior high, we're going to have more specific checklists that go along with longer assignments. Do all my sentences support my topic sentence? Did I choose a strong topic sentence? Is my paragraph 5 to 7 sentences long? How many? They go through and they check off each one of these, yes or no. If it's a no, they're not ready to turn it in. They need to go back and correct it and improve it. And that is something I really try to stress. Start using the word improve instead of correct. Hey, did I use specific, vivid, concrete words? Underline vague words in green. All right, how could we improve those particular words? So that's a checklist for junior and senior high. The next tip or stage is perfect. It is not perfect, but it is perfect. And too often our kids want to have a perfect paper the first time, and that's just not life. That's just not reality. And so they are going to perfect it themselves. So they've gone through the checklist. Now they're going to go back and read it again, put it away for a day or two, let it sort of, be fresh eyes, and then they're going to improve it as well. And especially this is for the older kids. The more attention they can give to self-editing and perfecting, the better this first revision will be. So they've checklisted, they see their mistakes, they go back and revise it. The better the first revision, the fewer the parent comments will have to be. Like I said, the younger students are going to skip this step. So they revise their paper. They do all of that before they turn it in to you because they are going to write a sloppy copy. They're going to proofread it. They're going to do a revised copy and then a parent copy. So sloppy copy, revised copy by student, parent copy. We'll get to parent copy in a minute. So they're going to apply the changes from their checklist or self-editing, and then they're going to revise it. And hopefully they can look and see the progress that they have made from the rough draft to the revised. You should be looking at that too as well and finding positive things that they have done well between the sloppy copy and their revised copy. Next is what we call propose. This is the parent editing, but you are going to use a checklist and you are going to propose changes. You are going to offer advice. You are not going to give lectures. Editors do not give lectures, they just hand it back with proposals. But here's the most important thing you'll see. Start with positive feedback. Anytime you are going to give your child back at any age a paper they've written, the first thing you need to do is start with positive feedback. You need to find at least 3 to 5 things positive. Now, if you're like, there's no way I can't find anything, it is just a complete disaster. Did they finish what you told them to? They may not have done everything, but did they do it and give it to you? Then you can praise them for that. Did they keep their letters on the line? Yes. Okay. Did they get their B's and D's correct? Yes. Did they spell the word I correctly? Yes. You can look and search for something that's positive. Always praise 3 to 5 things before you ever start showing ways that they can improve. And then it's very important that you use a partial checklist. You are their editor. All authors have an editor. Newspapers and magazines have editors, even online ones. The difference between an editor is mom is an editor gives the paper back. The mom gives the paper back with a lecture. We don't want to lecture them. We want to keep a positive attitude. We want to encourage success and confidence and encourage that motivation. You're going to give input after the student has had a chance to self-edit and rewrite. So here is a very long objective parent checklist. It's very similar to the one you just saw. And there are 2 columns, okay and needs improvement. Followed instructions for this assignment. There's only 2 answers. Okay, all sentences support topic sentence. Nope, there's one that doesn't. So you say needs improvement. Skip down. Use concrete words that are specific, vivid, and sensory. Yes, okay. Strong closing sentence. It gives a feeling of ending. No, needs improvement. So you can go through and all you're doing, this is an objective. It's not saying, do you want to add more detail? Do you want to be more creative? Could you be a little more concrete? It is specifically what you expect your kids to do. And so they don't feel, it's no longer parent against child. You're measuring their paper against lesson standards. And the student relaxes knowing that you'll be consistent and not just arbitrary. Because, see, what they are feeling right now, and one reason they may not be motivated is they may feel like if you criticize my work, you criticize me. And that may be a fear of theirs. I don't know. But I'm just saying that's something you need to be concerned about. If you criticize my work, you criticize me. So just pay attention to that and use an objective checklist. Now, the other thing you need to be doing, as I said, is give positive feedback. So here are some samples. You are a very expressive writer. I like the descriptive words you use, such as glorious and terrific instead of good. Fabulous verbs, you know. Here are some other suggestions you might use. Essay is off to a strong start. Now work on developing some details, or, a few more concrete words will make your paragraph even more descriptive. Let's see how descriptive you could be. That's not saying, do you want to do it? That's just encouraging. You have a solid basic paragraph, but I bet we could have a paragraph with pizzazz and detail. Let's see what we could do. Let's go to our word bank and see what we could do. So you see, we're starting with something positive before we look on improving. Bless them for their efforts and offer gentle suggestions that encourage growth without squishing their spirit. We are very good at squishing spirits. Why do kids not love learning? Because we just quench out any love of learning because we're just like little dictators telling them what to do. Now, I will tell you, again, at the primary level, parent and student edit the first draft together. There's no revision. You do it all together with there. Now, let's look. Oh, this is the wrong slide, duplicate. Polish and publish. We're getting to the end. This is the final draft, but it is only one part of the entire writing process. But we all live for this. This is what you're all expecting. You want a perfect final draft, and you're not always going to get it. So we need to learn to polish and publish and say that this is only one part of it and continue to look at progress. Maybe this isn't great, but maybe they did a really good job on brainstorming and organizing, or maybe they did a really good job on using their checklist this time from the last time. Look at progress and praise them for their progress. So, this final draft, the student is going to make corrections based on your comments and they're going to put their final touches on the paper. They are going to pay careful attention to form and to mechanics. Yes, the polished final draft is the published, and we do publish it. And it's just one step in this evolving work. And if you have little kids, even they can publish as well. Look at this. I love the little book that you go and you can get bound at the office store. Have your child write their story on the lines and illustrate it, um, decorate a book cover, and then take it up, get it laminated and bound, and then you've got the perfect grandma gift right there. Maybe it's a story about trains and all the parts are written on the different parts of the train that they have painted, and it's an entire book about the train. Or maybe the story is all on the diorama that's hanging from the ceiling. As they get older, they may do a hamburger book report. Here's your letter of invitation that's written on special stationery. Maybe you're going to roll up that report, put it in the Pringles can, and then decorate the can according to what the topic is. And then here we've got the bear report as well, all inside the body. Now, at the older kids, I would say we're taking a little bit different approach in that, yes, they are final draft should follow the comments. You are their safety net. Our kids need to pay careful attention to form and mechanics, and they either need to type it or write it neatly. But I think more importantly is they need opportunities to truly publish. Go look for contests, look for blogs, look for journals, look for online articles where they could submit their actual writing, and do stuff like this where there is a purpose for their writing. They're not just turning it in and writing for mom and dad. There is a true purpose. So I would really encourage you with your older kids to look for purpose in their writing. And then the final one is praise. I love it because really that should be the first part of what we are doing. And we need to remember that our child, they're being trained in the writing process. They often feel like the final draft is just the only thing mom and dad are interested in. So we need to praise them all the way along the writing process. And you need to, again, look at progress through the entire process. Sorry, these words are so close, but really, process and progress. Find progress in the process, the writing process, and then praise them. When the steps seem feasible, even the most reluctant writer stands a chance at achieving success, gaining confidence, and being inspired. And one way you can always encourage confidence, inspire your children, is by praising them. Evaluate the published project, giving plenty of praise. The top part of your evaluation should have 5 things of praise. Notice the things that they have done correctly, not just the mistakes. Point out very specifically, I like this word in this sentence. I like the way you connected. I like the way you transitioned from one paragraph to the next. Because, and then tell them why. So, you want to point out the positive. One of the biggest things is you want to also use, have lots of questions about grading. You want to use checklists, something that is objective, because the grade should be based on following directions and including the required elements. And when they do that, there's plenty of things to praise them. And the student knows why you're giving them their specific grade. Find a favorite sentence, strong word choices, clever use of languages. Focus on the positive. Now, here is an objective grading key. You've got a composition evaluation on the left and essay evaluation. This is for high school. Let me repeat. This is for high school. If you're in elementary school, you don't need grades. You just need a done or not done, okay or needs improvement. If it needs improvement, we work on it a little more. You don't need to give them a grade. I didn't give any grades until they got into high school. And this has it all broken out so you can give points for that particular assignment. And that's what I love. And I just took that off of Right Shop. An evaluation chart is a great way to record your child's growth and gain a better grasp of strengths and weaknesses. And you can keep these and look at the beginning of the year and the end of the year and see how they have improved in the writing process. So what do you need to do now? You really need to determine to make writing happen. You're going to have to take action and make a plan. You're going to need to choose a writing program, one that meets both your needs and your students' need, because the wrong program can actually create stumbling blocks for your child, but the right program will remove them. Which program is best for you? And you might look at the different programs out there. Number one thing is you need to pray for encouragement for yourself and how you can best encourage your child, how you can inspire your child, how you can give them confidence in their writing. And then do it one step at a time. No one reaches the top of the mountain in one leap. It is a process. Give you, your child, and the program time to work. Get there by placing one foot in front of the other, following the path, your plan that you've chosen. You can do it and your child can do it. You can be successful in inspiring and encouraging your kids. So be encouraged today. Inspire your kids to be successful writers and give them the success and the confidence that they need here. Now, before I finish, I will say that the rest of this week, we have a store-wide sale, which is 10% off of How to Homeschool My Child through Saturday. So that means that it will include Right Shop. Before I show you what that is, one thing I do like to let people know, I just got back from El Salvador last week. I'm leaving again next week. We take teams. We've got 4 teams this summer. We've had 2 already earlier in the year. We go down and work. We have 84 kids that are on scholarship that we send to school for good education. We remodel homes. We're building a brand new school, but we don't do it just for good things. We do it for one reason. That is to build relationships, earn the right to share Jesus Christ, and do that through remodeling, through education, that type of thing. We're watching kids come to know Jesus as their Savior, which is so exciting. People getting baptized, people taking leadership in the organization on the mountain. So just make sure everyone knows that all profits from my website, this sale or anything else, all the profits go back to Shelter the Homeless International Project. So what about Right Shop? Let me just tell you, K through 3rd is for pre-writers, beginning writers, no pressure approach, multisensory, write-on, hands-on, guided writing activities. And it should be howtohomeschoolmychild.com/Right Shop. And you can see reviews of each one of these. Junior is going to be a little bit different. It's just a little bit older, and it is going to be 3rd through 6th grade, different learning styles. And I was trying to pull the screen up. Multisensory still, lots of hands-on activities. Here's one thing I absolutely love, and that is that your kids are going to create a grammar book. They create their own grammar book, and then it is integrated into their writing assignments. They play games. They're going to journal. They will use organizers, and they will learn to edit themselves. They will just begin to learn that as well. Then we have Right Shop 1 and 2, which is junior and senior high, developing confident and competent writers. Concrete and concise writing. We want to develop sentence structure and strong vocabulary. This program gives step-by-step instructions, will teach descriptive, informative, narrative, essay writing, provides the graphic organizers that you need for pre-writing, organizing their ideas. And one of my favorite things is checklist. One thing I forgot is they provide examples. They provide examples for every single writing assignment so your kids can have a place of where they are headed. Again, howtohomeschoolmychild.com/Right Shop. If you order by this Saturday, I have these 5 bonuses, writing word banks that you could get started with. Kim Kotzer, the author of Right Shop, has written a book, Help, I Have a Reluctant Writer, that you may get this week. Classic book list for children and youth and adults. Powerful ways to sharpen your memory and time management tips for homeschooling moms. That's all worth $40. So that I will send to anyone that orders Right Shop this week. And then finally, well, I guess I lost it. Okay, let me just tell you, because there should be one more slide. Um, there's a 24-hour bonus, and you will get Making Biblical Decisions and 9 practical tips for all homeschool moms. That one's by me. And if you order, I will be sending that out tomorrow. So if you're interested, you can do that as well. See if we get to the next slide. I guess I cut it off. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, you can go to howtohomeschoolmychild.com/write shop, and you can see the reviews. You can pick the levels. You can actually go to a level like level C, and you can see the back of the book, and it is a chart that will help you choose which level is best for you. So you can see the pros and cons for each one, and if you should move to the next level or go back a level based on what your child's writing ability is right now. So thank you so much for your time. I hope these 7 tips will truly help improve your kids' writing. And if you do have questions, shoot me an email, put something on the blog or on Facebook, and I will be answering those questions. And if there's something specific you would like me to answer in a blog post, let me know that as well. I am Carrie Beck with howtohomeschoolmychild.com/write shop.